The Oklahoma City Thunder take game one after being down by 4 at half. They won by 26 points. Andrew, what were your first initial thoughts from this game?
Yeah, well, my first initial thoughts is that feels like the Thunder can go on a run at any point in these games, and if you can't weather that storm almost immediately, you're just completely cooked for the rest of the game. At some point, it felt like they went on they did go on a 10-0 run and then kind of just extended the lead out from there. And then once the Thunder do that to you, even if they are down in a game, if you can't weather that immediate storm after the Thunder go on whatever run that they go on in each of the second halves that they usually play well in, you're usually not going to win that game.
Yeah, the Thunder were just a completely different team in the second half. They had 19 forced turnovers for the game, 21 points off of turnovers. That's just what they do. That's been their MO all season, and we saw it again tonight. Now, there were some positive things for the Timberwolves, but that Thunder team, when they get SGA rolling, when they get that second score, they can go on a run like we saw in the third quarter. Let's move into the positives really quick for the Timberwolves before we give the flowers to the Thunder. Was there anything that you thought was good to see from them in this loss?
Yeah, I mean, the only good thing that you can consistently rely on for the Timberwolves all playoffs long has been Julius Randle. And in that first half, he was like the driver of them having a 4 point lead at half. He had 20 points off of like 4 for 5 from three. And he just in general shot very well today. In the second half, he was a little bit less of a presence, but just being able to dominate half the way he did in that first half and be able to keep them afloat, even though the Thunder just weren't shooting very well, is obviously a positive sign. But like one of the main negatives I do want to like attribute to the Timberwolves before we move on to any other positive things about them is that Naz Reid has to play like that was the worst playoff game I've ever seen from him personally. Like he was just like I don't know, he was just all over the place. He didn't score a point until the fourth quarter, and by that point it was probably already too late. So and then Anthony Edwards obviously getting hurt again, and then just was a non-factor in the second half. Those were two really big negatives that you can't have happen. And that's why the game just slipped away from them so quickly.
Oh, yeah. So we might move into the negatives a little bit quicker. But yeah, okay. Well, before we do, Julius Randle does deserve some love. He was hitting his shots in the first half. And I don't know game to game if that's going to be sustainable for him, but he's been able to do it in the playoffs and he's been really, really good. What?
Bro, you like will never let go of this take. Like you are just waiting for Julius Randle to have one bad game, and then you're like, "I told you so, bro." Like all playoffs long, you've just been waiting for him to bomb, and he's been one of their most consistent players. But I understand where it comes from over the course of the last couple of years. His playoff performances have just been subpar at the very least. So I understand what you're saying, but he's just been playing his tail off all playoffs long so far.
No, yeah, he certainly has been. Maybe he won't be the reason why they end up getting bounced. Maybe it is Anthony Edwards' injury and his lack of being able to show up against this Thunder team, or maybe the Thunder are just going to be better. But yeah, no, I'm legitimately waiting for him and Rudy Gobert. But I felt like they were both positives. They were the best players pretty much for this team for this game, or at least for that first half, and they were the reason why they were up by 4. So yeah, we'll table the Julius Randle conversation for another moment whenever he can potentially not rise to the occasion. He was really good, but I'm glad that you mentioned the bench and Naz Reid. Their collective shooting for this game was putrid. There was a clear difference in depth, and then when the Thunder were able to get rolling, they just weren't able to like support this team. Then obviously that Anthony Edwards rolled ankle was just not going to allow this team to score enough points to win this game. That's why they ended up being, under 90 points for the entire ball game.
Yeah, I just thought the word putrid was funny, but that completely describes it from the bench. Like their main two bench scores were like the ones that played significant minutes today were Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Naz Reid, and they combined for 2 for 16 from three, which isn't going to get anything done. Naz Reid just again had one of the worst games I've seen from him, like especially in the playoffs. But yeah, Nickeil Alexander-Walker got some significant minutes, got to play against his cousin in Shea, and that was a nice little feel good story. And he actually played really well in defense, but like they
Yeah, it
just
would have
weren't
been
getting.
nice if he had shot better than 3 for 11.
Yeah,
But
no, 100%. But I mean, you're not like Nickeil Alexander Walker isn't supposed to be like your scoring push. Like he is very like he's a defender and he can give you a couple points, but like that is not like if he's taking 11 shots, there's probably something going wrong in that game just in general.
that's very true. Also, I wanted to walk back a statement. Rudy Gobert was great defensively for this team in the first half, forcing the Oklahoma City Thunder into some bad shots. I felt like they were tentative towards the paint. Not very good offensively, of course, but that's usually just Rudy Gobert's kind of thing. Okay, let's move into the Thunder and what they did well in this game. Obviously, they were down at half, completely turned things around. We've already mentioned Jalen Williams. a little bit, and their points off of turnovers, which have been really crucial. But what else were you looking for in this game as a reason why they were able to take this home?
Yeah, OKC's defense is just so consistently good, especially like when they're not having their greatest offensive nights. Like they'll miss shots, but then they'll also play they'll play really hard on defense, which makes it just so hard to beat them because they were like absolutely terrible in the first half, at least shooting wise. Shea wasn't having a very good game. They felt like they were just doing a good job on him defensively, besides fouling him and letting him go to the free throw line so consistently. But just in general, shooting wise, that OKC team wasn't doing very well. But then in the second half, they turned it on, and the reason why that first half was so close was because it was only a 4-point game, and they held the Timberwolves to under 50 points. Which part of that was Anthony Edwards going down and nobody really being able to produce besides Nas Reed. But then another part of that is because of the fact that the Thunder play such good defense. So the fact that they have such a scoring push between Jalen Williams and Chet whenever he gets going, and Shea obviously, and then everybody on that team feels like they can score or shoot. And then they also play really tough defense between Caruso and it feels like everybody on that team. I think that's one of the main positives that you can take away, that even when they're not shooting the ball well, they're only down 4 points at halftime because their defense won't give up 50 points.
Couldn't agree more. When Shea has it going, it feels like everybody else falls in line for this team. They've got so much depth, so much scoring ability that the Timberwolves just simply won't be able to match it, especially if they shoot like they did from their bench. Their defense was unbelievable in this game. Alex Caruso, Casey Wallace, Chet Holmgren, they were all good, whether that was on the perimeter or within, protecting the rim. Jalen Williams, he obviously didn't have a great first half as far as offense, but I think you mentioned this earlier. He was just amazing defensively all game. Like they were able to weather the storm. I felt like it was almost closer to worst case scenario. If Anthony Edwards was completely healthy for that first half, it probably would have turned into a worst case scenario. Maybe they would have been down by even more points because it felt like Shea was having a lot of trouble. Jaden McDaniels played some great defense on him in the first half, but they were able to weather that storm, get back in the locker room, and they went out there and punched the Timberwolves in the mouth. Anytime the Timberwolves shoot 53s, I don't know if they're going to, I don't think they're going to win. They don't want to do that. And anytime you can force a team to do that, I think you're pretty much in a very good standing to win the game.
Yeah, no, I mean, that has been a little bit more of their MO this year just because of the fact that Anthony Edwards has been chucking up so many, but
But 50
as a
too
whole,
much.
yeah, no, as a
Yeah.
whole, that is just too much for their team. They look like the Boston Celtics out there, except like a probably a worse version of them. And like you got some solid contributions. Like Mike Conley had a decent enough game. He played like well defensively, didn't give you the biggest scoring like push, but still that's gonna be Mike Conley too. But I don't know that this game is that much different if Ant holistically is that much different if Ant doesn't get injured, just because of the fact that Julius Randle was so efficient that first half that he was taking a lot of those shots that Ant would and gave you 20 points in the first half. You're not going to get much more from him like ever. So he's really stepped up for them, and I think this Thunder team is just that good where when they make their push in the second half, you have to immediately respond or the game's over. Like as soon as it felt like it started with Jalen Williams, like just being like he had a couple points to start the run, and in the start of the second half, and then Shea just took over, leading towards the end of the third quarter, start of the fourth quarter, and then that game was over.
All right. Well, moving into game two, I'll give something that I'm going to watch and then you'll end us off here. I'm going to say Shea, he shot 41% from three before the All-Star break. And I believe he's somewhere around 28% or so for the playoffs. He was 0 for 4 tonight. I think that needs to be cleaned up for the Thunder. And if Anthony Edwards is better, and I've been waiting for Julius Randle to fall off, but if he doesn't, I really do think that this could be a much closer contest because, like I said earlier, when Shea is shooting the ball well or scoring, this team falls in line. If that's not the case, that three-point shot can't turn itself around, then I think the Timberwolves got a real shot. I'm looking forward to that in game two.
Yeah, I mean, I want to see like on the opposite side of that, like looking more defensively. Jaden McDaniels fouled out in this game, and he was able to play pretty aggressive defense and was a good defender on Anthony Edwards or Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. And at one point, as his primary defender, I think Shea was 1 for 7 from the field. So I just like from a defensive standpoint, I've always been high on Jaden McDaniels. So being able to see if he can consistently play good defense on Shea is going to be one of the things I want to look for in game two.